Hi, everyone. My name is Denise. I'm a health freedom activist in Northern California, and I have a blog called TheInformedMama.org. I am also representative of Freedom Angels, and we are freedomangels.org. So, a lot has been going on in the news, and I just did a live on Facebook with my friend Sandra, and I, I don't really talk about this part of the movement because it's a lot to have on your shoulders. It's a lot to deal with. Hi, guys. And I want to talk to you guys about what's happening in the world of trafficking and what's happening in California because mainstream refuses to report it. And there's just been a lot of, we've seen what's happening with PG&E. And this is not to prevent fires, by the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top with PG&E fires, and then I'm going to go down how I came into this rabbit hole. So if you guys did not know, in the state of California, we had PG&E shutting off the power to the Bay Area communities, and this was not for fires. What's been happening is that there were 2,100 children who were saved from human trafficking, and we have something called white hats. So white hats are the good people within every entity of our government, within every entity of large corporations that help us when needed. So PG&E, to start, is it's not a government agency, but it is ran by the Rothschilds. So Rothschilds, there's a family, there's certain families in the United States, all over the world, who are in charge of us. It's the central banking system. They're in charge of our money. The Federal Reserve is not a government entity. It's actually a private company owned by these families that control our money. So that's another rabbit hole to go into. That's reasons why we go to war and all that stuff. But look up Gaddafi and why he was killed. But my tinfoil hat is going to show today. So PG&E's white hats had to turn off the power grid in California in order to find the underground tunnels. Underground tunnels are how humans are trafficked. At the state capitol, there's tunnels going from the capitol to the courthouses, and to the jails. That's how a lot of that's how they're transported. So that way, there's not a lot of, media. So if you look at certain stories that have happened, you're seeing fires in manholes coming up from the ground, which does not happen. So they basically had to smoke out these people. The white hats came and did use their machines to check to see if there was power underground. And in order to do that, they had to shut down the power grid on top. So 2,100 children have been saved. These children were trafficked, and some of these children were farmed. If you do not know what that means, women who are trafficked from, the border, or trafficked from, girls trafficked from CPS, they are kept and the children are born, and then that's the term farming the kids come from. So every single entity, your evidence is not going to be on mainstream. It is being told from government entities. It's being told from people who work within the government, and it's being told from award-winning journalists. So you're not going to find this on CNN. If you don't believe me, that's completely okay. You'll one day find your rabbit hole. Yes, that's only one bus. I mean, there's literally there's tunnels all over. There's tunnels everywhere, all the way underground. So that's what's happened with that part of turning off the grid. And then the next story is that there was the largest darknet website taken down. So the darknet is a websites that are not available to us. Obviously, they are for child porn, for snuff films. They're only accessible if somebody invites you. So you confirm So there are tunnels at the Capitol. We've confirmed it. So that's That's all that's all true stuff. Anyways, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna stop reading the comments because I lose track. So I forgot where I was at. Oh, so the dark web. So what that was, it was a Korean national who the website was it was in English. It was for Americans, and a federal agent was also part of the bust for having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of child pornography videos uploaded to their computer. He even used his federal ID issued to get onto these websites. So everything's connected. Every movement is connected in a way, and our movement is especially connected with CPS. So CPS is a child trafficking agency. They are not here for family reunification. They actually prey on the poor, they prey on the uninformed, and they prey on these families who have no idea what their rights are. So all of this stuff is completely backed up. You can actually go to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to see these numbers. I'm going to read to you. But every year, there's over 18,500 children who are reported as runaways. This is just within the CPS system. This is not within the United States or within one certain state. This is in the CPS system. Over 18,000 children are labeled runaways. Now, when they're labeled runaways, they're not forced to use the Amber Alert system. And they label them as runaways as soon as the foster parents report them. So they're not reported missing, they're reported runaways. 86% of children in social services agencies go missing. And in 2014, just in New York alone, 85% of sex traffic victims come from CPS. So when you see that New York wants to legalize sex work, this is not for the sake of adults making their own decisions. This is in order to desensitize us into thinking that sex work is a consenting employed position, I guess you would say. Some of them are. Some of those are adults who are making their own decisions. But the majority of them in New York, 85% of them, are trafficked, and they're put into the sex work to, for their pimps. And they range from women, children, boys, girls, men. They're all in this equation. So it's not just children; there are adults as well. This is why, in California, the Trump administration forced China to sell their port in Los Angeles. Why China has property on American soil is completely beyond me. But at the ports is where the entrance of all of the humans being trafficked come in. So Sacramento is a hub. San Francisco is a hub, and Sacramento is a hub because it has access to all of those, to the ports, as well as Los Angeles, Long Beach, those areas. So these are the hot spots because there's been confirmed stories of people being brought on the containers of the ships. So the Trump administration has actually asked for people whistleblowers to contact them with affidavits of CPS child trafficking. The most important thing I can tell you is to know your rights. That is the most important thing I can tell you as far as CPS. You can go to Emma Smith. Oh, I wrote it down. Hold on. emmasmith.org/know your family rights handbook. This is going to tell you the Constitution. It's going to give you the citations on what CPS can and cannot do. CPS is not a government agency. CPS is a for-profit agency that its sole purpose is to make money off of children. In the state of Oregon, they only wait a year until a child is in foster care, for a child to be in foster care to adopt them out. Here, it's 18 months. So there's a reason why CPS does not support family reunification, because there's a lot of money within that entity. That's why hospitals contract with CPS. So that way, if you do not vaccinate your children, they come and they will tell you that you're medically neglecting them. So my advice is that you have a folder with all of your children's medical information. Take your children to the doctor twice a year, just to make sure that you cannot be told that you're medically neglecting your children. This is what I do. I keep it in a binder, so that way, if they do come, oh, hold on. I got to move this over. Hold on. My kid's here. Hold on. Hold on. I'm on the phone. So that way, hold on, sorry guys. If they do come, then sorry, I have to be in my room. This is kind of weird. You're able to protect yourself. So a lot of times people ask me why I don't do certain things. So I don't take my children to, what I have in my binder is just my children's medical information. So the doctor will say that your children's height, weight, nutrition is all in check, is all up to par. So that's why I keep it in there. So when CPS, trust me, CPS has come to my home 3 times because I have been reported for medically neglecting my children. I have the binder. The Emma Smith website is a really important website because it's going to tell you what your rights are with CPS. So do not ever talk to CPS ever without a warrant. Even if they come, so let me move this way because of the lighting. Even if they come with a police officer, it doesn't matter. No warrant, no entry, can't help you. This is the only piece of advice that I can give you that is going to make sure that you have time to kind of figure out what you're going to do next. So that's for that one. A lot of people ask me why I don't take my children to Disneyland or Disney World anymore. And I'm going to hit on all these subjects, and this is something that you guys are going to have to look on your own. But in 2012, is it 2012? Sorry, I have my notes here. 35 employees at Disney World were arrested and charged with human trafficking for trying to meet and have sex with children. So that is another reason. That's one of the reasons why I don't do that. But my also think, this is a big thing. So a lot of people have kind of gotten angry at me because how I feel about illegal immigration. I've said this before, I am second generation American. My family has migrated here from Mexico to work the fields. So I understand having to leave your country to come here because you want a better life. What people do not understand is that the children at the border, where's my number? Did I write it down? 48,000 children since January of 2019 have showed up unaccompanied. So they're with coyotes. They're with children they're with adults who go to women's shelters and buy children. This was reported by the San Diego Tribune that men were going over to the shelters in Mexico and taking these kids and bringing them across the borders to seek asylum. They're actually selling the children here. What also goes along with our movement is that the children here, or the children when they come here, they're immediately vaccinated. And then if they become injured, if they have a reaction to a vaccine, they're ignored because the medical care at the border is not up to par. There's too many people. So how do we know if these children belong to these families? We don't. How do we know that they're going to be reunified with their families? We don't. This is why the border wall is so important to me, and why it's so important that we continue to support our border agents, because these children, 48,000 children, have been rescued from the border with coyotes. Now, coyotes charge these families to bring their families over the border. And it's a problem. It's a huge problem in the United States. And now we're seeing it because we're seeing all of these bad stories coming to light. And in order for us to fix it, we have to acknowledge it. And for years, for too long, we have seen that this issue has been swept under the rug. We have seen that CPS puts children with pedophiles, known pedophiles. This is not a Trump issue, so let's try to focus, okay? This is a why there's some issues happening in the United States. It has nothing to do with Trump. This is why we're in the same fucking situation that we're in. Oh, somebody's upset because I'm concerned about children. So we are in a state of where at the moment you say Trump, people like this, what's Angelica _ 100 tell me fuck you, because I am telling you that there are children at the border being trafficked. I'm not going to read the comments. Sorry, guys. Let's talk about the Amber Alert system. So the Amber Alert system is meant to set up to alert us that there's children missing, correct? How many of you have actually looked at Amber Alert systems and noticed that they don't really go on too often when thousands upon thousands of children go missing every single day? Let me tell you why. Laura Silsby, okay, I'm sorry, Mom. Laura Silsby, Silsby, is in charge of the Alert Sense, which is in charge of the Amber Alert system. The Amber Alert system is responsible for alerting us that children are missing, right? Laura Silsby was actually found to be trying to traffic 33 children from Haiti into the United States to sell them. And Hillary Clinton appointed her the person in charge of the Amber Alert system. So if you guys see that everything's connected, when you go to the hospital and they try to take your children away from you, they're not trying to take your children away from you for family reunification or for trying to, make sure that your family is safe and secure. They're actually there to put your child in the system so that way they can adopt them out, which is money. Now, what's another rabbit hole that I'm not going to get into too much, I'll kind of tell you why, but what has happened is families, Black families, Mexican families are maimed at hospitals. A couple years ago, I went to Oakland's Children's Hospital because there was a little boy who had a reaction to a vaccine, had a heart attack. He was put on life support. The family wanted to keep him alive to see what, it wasn't that long that he was on life support. And the hospital told them at 5 o'clock on Friday evening that they were going to pull the plug on Monday if they did not transfer or find an attorney. So they told them that on Friday at 5 o'clock that they were going to pull the plug Monday at 1:30. I was able to get there and to help the family with their rights, to get them the right representation, and to get them their family meetings that are afforded to them at hospitals, because if you did not know, hospitals are required to do the transfers, not parents. So if the hospital tells you, no, you're responsible for the transfer, they're lying to you. During this time, the hospital tried to get the family to sign over their baby's organs. Now, organ trafficking is also another huge issue on American soil, and it's an even bigger issue with African American families. So on Monday at 12 o'clock, after continuously hitting this hospital and telling them, no, they are not going to sign over their child's organs. No, they are not going to take their child out of life support, and you are responsible for transferring. They were able to the hospital came back at 12:30 saying that we are not going to pull the plug and we're going to transfer your kid. So this is human trafficking, organ trafficking, the adoption scheme, the foster care scheme. That's not saying that every foster care agency is like this. It's not saying that every foster family is like this, but what's been recorded has been showing that CPS does put children in homes of pedophiles. 86% of these children end up in the sex trafficking ring. This is why I'm going to get a little personal here, but porn is a real big issue for me. It never used to be, but because of what I've delved into, these women are not normally doing it on their consent. So it kind of ruined the whole thing for me, unfortunately, but this is a rabbit hole that you go to. And, it sucks because everything's freaking connected. And I have to sit here on social media and show you guys my tinfoil hat. But this is real. What about the lady that was on CPS missing children? Right. So a lot of people, whistleblowers, have come out against CPS and they have committed suicide. Oh my God, here we have, it's not about Trump, guys. Can you focus? Like, this is why we're in this mess to begin with, because you guys are all worried about the name Trump. I am not loyal to party lines. I am not loyal to Democrats. I'm not loyal to Republicans. I am more of like, independent. I'm going to look at the candidate and I'm going to look at who is supporting, who's contributing, and what they're actually doing, the policies that are in place. Right now, human trafficking it's always been a very big part of my movement, and it's been a really big part of why I do this. And we have to look at what's happening at the border. We have to look at the men who are buying children from women's shelters, and we have to look at why they're coming through the border and seeking asylum with children that are not theirs. 48,000 children since January have not belonged to these people. They have been bringing these people, these women, these men across the border to sell them for labor, sell them for child trafficking, sell them for, everything that comes along with all of that. This is why I want to see better policies put in place and an easier way to come here, because once you're illegal and you're here, you are under the thumb of the government. You are under the thumb of your employer, because these people are too scared to say anything. These people are too scared to report their employer or to report a crime or to report when they're being discriminated against. We've had people who are too scared to come out to the Capitol because they don't have papers. Meanwhile, their children are being forced into getting vaccinated to go to a public school that completely indoctrinates them, as we're seeing now with the sex ed program. Children in the state of California over the age of 12 we cannot see their medical information. So if you look at it's AB 499, I believe, or AB 499, to where a 12-year-old can make medical decisions for themselves. And that includes contraceptives, that includes abortions, and that includes vaccines. Now, this is what's happening to our children in the United States. I can give two shits if you don't like me, because I support what's happening at the border to get that under control. My goal is to make sure that people are aware of what's happening to children in the United States and across the world. Children, women are a bigger commodity than drugs, and they're easier to come across. So we have a real big problem on our hands, and it's people like this guy who thinks it's all about a wall and it's all about keeping illegal immigrants out. No, it's about protecting those men and those women and those children who are being forced to come over here thinking that they're going to have a better life for themselves, and instead they find themselves in a worse situation. Their children are being removed. The women have no idea what their rights are, and the men are stuck in a labor, being forced for labor, cheap labor, because they can't report their employer. This is all connected. Every single movement is connected, but we're too stuck on labels and Trump and all of these other, mediocre, stupid things that there's not a bigger picture that you're seeing here. Pay attention to what's happening in the state of California. Pay attention to what's happening in New York, because that's going to come to a state near you. We have had children being rescued. We have had the largest dark net child porn exchange website taken down. We have had children rescued at the border, upwards of almost 50,000 since January. There's a reason why all of this is happening. And there's a reason why you're seeing these sex ed programs happening in schools. It is not LGBT inclusive, and I'm telling you this from a person who has a child with another woman. This does not make you homophobic if you don't agree with it. This is actually all connected to break up the family unit and to tell these children, your parents don't know what's right for you. We know what's right for you. Telling the men that they get stuck in the family courts, they get screwed because courts always prefer the mothers, and then they have to do child support, which some of that money gets funneled over to the child support agency. It is not for our children. It is not for our families. It is not for our health. There's a bigger agenda happening. So I'm hoping that you guys, I'm hoping that this kind of opens your eyes to see that there's a lot deeper, just like Planned Parenthood on our school campuses. They need our children to stay in business. This is not about abortions. If I don't believe in them for myself, but it is not my position to say anything to anybody else about what they do. However, Planned Parenthood should be abolished. They have been trafficking human body parts. They are on our school grounds to get our children to not listen to their parents and say, their moral compass is not like ours. You guys need to come and follow us. It is a fact that our men are now being, I don't know where the alpha men are. I'm looking for them. I can't find them. Our men are being changed. And if you don't know what that means, I would encourage you to look at atrazine and what's being put into our waters in the ghetto and what's being put into our plastics. It takes two parents to work in California and usually across the world. Why? It was never like this. This is why I feel that the women's movement actually hurt us more than helped us. It caused women to have to work, to be taxed, to put our children in public school, to put them in daycare. We don't have access to any of the stuff that they're teaching because we're too busy working and trying to take care of our families. All of it's connected, and I know that this is going to probably sound actually crazy, but take pieces of what I'm saying and fact check it, because it's there, it's available to you. We are all really busy looking down at our phones versus what's happening in the world. We're all too busy looking at labels and looking at just certain pieces of the issue instead of the entire picture. The reason why I did this video is because there's been a lot of arrests happening, and there has been a lot of action happening with children being rescued and women being rescued. I ask you guys to just look into it, because if you're from the CPS movement, if you're from, if you're from any movement, we're actually all connected to each other. So I hope that this has kind of given you a little bit of information on where you can look. Like I said, everything is looked at and backed up. But like I said, you can go to emmasmith.org/Know Your Family Rights Handbook to find out how CPS can and cannot investigate you and what your rights are. They also have citations, so you can look on there and you can look to see what affects you. You can also go to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and you can see the statistics on what I gave you for the CPS trafficking and the numbers that came from. And you can also go to Department of Homeland Security and look at the numbers I told you about children who are being rescued at the border. And the San Diego Tribune has the story on men going to women's shelters in Mexico to bring to bring these children across the border to seek asylum. And yes, McCain, that's another rabbit hole that I'm not going to go down right now. But look it up and then look at the stories of how the Obama administration knew that children were being put in homes of pedophiles. I keep saying that the storm is here. And if you do not know what that means, I'm just saying the storm is here. So that's my spill for the day. I'll probably come back when more stories are being shared. So if you guys have any questions, you can email me. And like I said, my emails, I have way too many. But if there's an emergency, yes. If there's an emergency, just put in the subject line what it is. So I'll talk to you guys soon. And just know that the storm has arrived. Bye.